Welcome to the channel. Nope. Hi there, welcome to the channel. I'm Marguerite with Wreaths by Marguerite. I'm glad you're here to join me today. I decided that I wanted to start making product for the Patriotic season now because we have an extra special year here this year. We're in our Sesquicentennial, and if I said that wrong, I apologize. We are on our 250th anniversary. I can remember my bicentennial goodies that I had back in the day, and yes, that's dating me. So I'm pretty excited about this upcoming holiday this year. It's pretty exciting. I'm wearing my patriotic gear so that I am representing while I make my beautiful wreath. Today we made this one. It says, "We the people, 250 years, 1776 to 2026. This is a storm door wreath, so that means it's extra thin. It's under 4 inches deep, so that if you have a storm or a screen door, it will fit there without getting crushed. So let's go ahead and see how I made this, so that if this is something you want to do as well, you can follow along. I have tutorials for over 2 years now. We just celebrated our 2-year anniversary, which is exciting. So there's lots of content. If you want more in-depth direction, you can go and look at that, or if you're just watching to be entertained, I appreciate you being here. So let's get started with this great wreath. So let's go over the materials list for this project. First of all, it was all inspired by the sign. This one says 1776 to 2026. As we are celebrating the Sesquicentennial, which is 250 years, just like the sign says. So that's the inspiration. It is a black background, which will help to set it off on the actual storm door wreath. But I did do a very deep blue when I did my blues because I didn't think black was really appropriate. We want to stick with the red, white, and blue. And I thought it had a more rustic look to it, so I went with ribbons with burlap. And since there's so little white in the pattern ribbons, I went with the white as the solid color to break up the patterns. You can do all patterns if you want. You can do all solid colored ribbons if you want. That's entirely up to you. I pre-cut and made up my bundles already, but let me go over what we have in the bundles. This is a 2.5 inch ribbon this way, and I cut them at 13 inches, put the dovetails, those V's in the end. And then this is a 1.5 inch pattern. Again, that more rustic deep blue, red, which is almost burgundy, but it matches really well with what's on the side. And then this is a 2.5 inch cut at 13 inches. They're all cut at 13 inches. There's 12 bundles of 3 because there are 12 pipe cleaners in the frame. The frame is a 14.25 inch frame with 12 chenille stems or pipe cleaners, depends on what you want to call it. It's the same thing. So there's 6 on the outside and 6 on the inside. You need to make sure for this particular style of wreath design that you have 4 rings on the frame, 1, 2, 3, 4, and it has 6 of the crossbars because you're putting the outside 6 pipe cleaners at the crossbars on rings 1 and 2, and then you're putting the inside 6 pipe cleaners on the rings 3 and 4 in between the crossbars. So there's 6 and 6, 12 bundles, and then last but not least, 12 pieces of 10-inch mesh cut at 20 inches in length. So let me lay this down. It's 10 inches this way by 20 inches this way. This is a poly deco. It's got fabric in it. It's got a little it's more plastic than fabric, which is really good for designs you want to put outside. It's definitely stiffer than a fabric mesh. But yeah, so there's 12 of these, 12 of these, 12 of the pipe cleaners, 1 sign, and on the sign I've already pre-attached my pipe cleaners. You take 2 pipe cleaners and cut them in half. And what we've used is, because this is under a 1/4 inch sign, rather than try to staple things through it, standard staples are 1/4 inch. We've gone with the cable tie mounts. They're these little black plastic 1x1s. They go on first, and then you attach the pipe cleaners to them. When you put the cable tie mounts on, make sure that you're putting some super glue, something like this, underneath the black square cable tie mount. These have a adhesive pad on the back of them. Sometimes they don't. Either way, you need to use a super glue to hold it in place long term. And then I go back and I reinforce it with the hot glue. Okay. On the wood signs, the hot glue works better and stays better, but it's never worth taking a chance. Just like with the metal signs, if it gets extremely cold, where you have this displayed, it can pop off, and if it gets extremely warm, it could just melt off of the back. So having those two types of glue on there help keep it there permanently the way you want it to. And I've attached 4 so that I can attach it to the wreath in 4 spaces. You'll see that when we get to it. I'm going to keep it upside down now on the plastic so that it doesn't get scratched while we're creating the wreath. There's one more tool I didn't get out, and then we'll go over tools. So I use a chip clip to hold my mesh. That's something you have around the house that you don't have to go out and invest in. I have 2 different wire cutters. This one's a DeWalt. This one is from Deco Exchange. You can find them all over the internet, decoexchange.com. A lot of the vendors have them now as well. I like both of them. It just depends on the mood I am in, which one I use. So I'm going to use that one. A good pair of scissors. I use the Fiskar brand. That's my favorite. And don't let anybody else use it because it'll dull the blade for using it on your ribbon. Needle nose in case I need to pull something through. And these last things you'll find out later when we do the sign part. What I use them for, this is to pull the pipe cleaners on the back of the sign through the mesh without a struggle. You can still do it without it if you don't have one of these, but they are a handy tool. And either a pen, pencil, or a wooden dowel. This is for curling the pipe cleaners on the top of the project. So if you don't have a wood dowel, a pencil or a pen are the same diameter in most cases, so they work perfectly. You don't want anything thick. So one of the first things I go over is, we're going to use the outside 6 first. The first thing I do is, one at a time, I go around the frame and I put the pipe cleaners out horizontal to me. That way I don't need a third hand when I get to that point. You'll understand as I'm putting the mesh in if you're a first timer. And you notice I'm moving the wreath around to work on the particular pipe cleaner. I'm not reaching across the table. That takes away a lot of the strain on the back. Okay. And now we're going to work with the mesh. So the first thing you need to know is it's always curl side down on the table. Okay. I like to use the edge of the table to unravel it, uncurl it. And then you need to fold it in half. You could use a ruler, you could use the cutting mat, you could use whatever you want to find the center of your mesh. This is 10-inch mesh, so ideally the center is 5 inches. But, you know, just in the last year it dawned on me, why do I need a ruler? All I have to do is fold it in half and clip the center. Why am I doing that? Especially because this is a solid colored mesh, I need something to guide me ruffling up the center of the mesh. So that's why that's there. It's less necessary if you have a mesh with stripes in it or design or plaid or whatever, but I still use it regardless because it helps hold the mesh down at that end so it doesn't curl up on me. Because when it curls up on you, for those of you that have made these before, you know they get in the way when you're trying to ruffle, so that helps hold them away. If you don't have the chip clip, just throw your phone on one end and then do the other end like this. Same thing. That tells you where you need to start right here. I've been doing this quite a few years, so I already had my finger in the right spot. You'll find your way as you go along if you're new to this. So that's my center. So what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to take my hands and put my thumbs on the outside of the mesh and take all my fingers and ruffle it up the center. And I just kind of keep an eye on that chip clip as I'm ruffling. And I'm bringing it towards me as I ruffle again, so I'm not straining my back. On the next one, I'll go ahead and ruffle up to the clip so you can see how that looks too. These are just suggested ways of doing this. I fluctuate between all of them just to keep it from being boring. So I got down to the end. I took the clip off. I'm going to put the mesh in my thumb and forefinger loosely so that if I need to make any adjustments in one side or the other, I'm pulling on it and destroying the design in the mesh. First thing, don't ever grab it from the outside edge. If you're adjusting it, grab it down by your fingers. You're looking to make sure that the edges are even so that you have a perfectly round piece of mesh. And of course you got to eyeball it to make sure it's still pardon, even on both sides. Sorry. Let me get a sip of something. I'm dry. It's very dry this year in Nebraska. We have not gotten hardly any snow at all this year, which just adds to the dryness. Okay, so I've gotten all that done. Now I'm going to bring the base over, and I'm going to take my mesh and put it in the horizontal pipe cleaners. The mesh is going in vertically. Pardon. Ooh. I'm going to hold it with one hand to bring up the other pipe cleaner. A piece of the mesh is in the way. That's why I'm struggling. I'll cut that off once we get it in here. So we're going to take the pipe cleaner and crisscross it. Tight and low. Twist it. Very low. 1, 2, 3. Don't twist it upwards towards the ceiling because that's going to make the center of this much thicker. And the whole idea with the storm door wreath is to keep the wreath under 4 inches so that it will fit behind the storm door wreath. If you're not putting this behind a storm door wreath, behind a storm door or a screen door, in that 4 inches of space that is left there between the doors, then you don't have to be as cautious about that. But you do need to be somewhat cautious because if you use up all the pipe cleaner before you get to the top, that's not going to work either. You want all your product as close to the frame as possible so that you're not using all the pipe cleaner and it keeps it thin. So now that we've got it in, I made sure to put it vertically so the cut ends are in the center and not this way. That way none of the cut edges are exposed to the edge. So I'm going to take one side, outside cut edge over the inside cut edge. And then I'm going to move the pipe cleaners out of the way and do the outside cut edge over the inside cut edge. That protects all your cut edges from being exposed. And then if you need to make any adjustments, this is where you do it. Right here, between ruffling it and putting in the frame, I have about 1.5 inches difference. So to adjust it, I recommend you grab from the pipe cleaner, grab the mesh down at the base, and see if you can get that straightened out. There you go. I think I cut this piece a little odd, so I'm going to make a little bit of a haircut on that mesh because it's sticking out all pointy. That usually means I cut it a little bit sideways. If you cut mesh before, you understand how that happens. It's not fatal to the project. So when you can, you want to also turn those edges out and under. This won't be seen. It'll be covered by other product, so it is not as important for it to be perfectly round, but it's always nice when you can do that. What your focus is on the outside is you have a nice even circle out here. This dips in right here. So, and this points out a little bit. So I want to get rid of this point. So you go to the other side where it dips in a little bit, grab it down by the pipe cleaner, and that should even out the circle. We're looking for a nice clean circle out here. Get that off. And then when I put these in, I don't go from one to the next to the next. I do that in my bigger wreaths, but in the storm door wreaths, because you have an even number of pipe cleaners, I put one here, skip one, put one here, skip one, put one here, and then you go back and do the other 3. That way it helps it line up in a more design to it, and it helps keep it flatter. We're going to try to avoid the coughing. Okay. Try to remember to stay hydrated. So now curl side down. Fold it in half, clip the center, then I'm going to go to the other side and fold it in half to find my center, put my finger in there, I'm going to put my thumbs on the outside and ruffle it towards the clip, trying to stay as close to the center as you can. I have said this for years, there is a mesh out there, and I've seen it like Hobby Lobby that has a string in the center to pull it. That way it's totally even. One of these days I'm going to stop talking about it and actually buy some and see how it really works. Because that would be pretty good. If you just have to pull it, it saves the ruffling process. Now I don't know if it's because I'm left-handed, I do turn back and forth when I'm creating. I'm sure it's just my habit, not the left-handed thing, but always remember I'm doing everything left-handed. So that pipe cleaner is horizontal. Bring that up. Twist it tight and low 3 times. Then I try to remember to put it up in the air so it's out of the way. I'm going to take that outside cut edge over the inside cut edge on one side. And then I'm going to take the outside cut edge over the inside cut edge on the other side. And it's always a good time to cut any fray. All mesh frays, but some more than more than others. I think this one came out even. Yes, so I don't have to make any adjustments there. Fabulous. Skip that and go to this one. This has been a real year of sickness for me, so I apologize for all the coughing and hacking and wheezing and stuff. I'm trying to keep it to a minimum, but okay, curled side down. Fold it in half to find your center. Clip it. This one comes off. Fold it in half. Put your thumbs on the outside, ruffle it with both hands, following the center all the way up to the clip. I do gather it in a different fashion as well, and I'll show that on the top layer. Okay, holding it loosely, making sure my edges are pretty. I'm not grabbing it out there because that's the part that will be seen, and we don't want to compromise the design. This in here, vertically in the horizontal pipe cleaners. Bring them up, twist them tight and low 3 times. Why are the pipe cleaners red? That might be your first question. The edges of the ribbon that will be on the top of the mesh will be red, so it'll blend in nicely. I try to match the pipe cleaners also to edge of the top ribbon. Okay, so back to this. Outside cut edge over inside cut edge. I can tell right now that that dips way in and it shouldn't, so I'm going to bring that out a little. I'm going to take this outside edge over this inside edge. I love this mesh, but it frays. At least this last batch is fraying more than it used to. This is a great everyday mesh to have. It's neutral. I use it for so many designs, whether it's rustic or not. Okay, so now we're going to go back and we are going to bring up the pipe cleaners for the other 3, the ones in between. Pipe cleaners in between each of these poofs that I made. I thought this would be a great time to make this since it's the Winter Olympics in Italy. And why wait till June or July to make a patriotic wreath to celebrate our 250th here in the US? Uncurl with the table. You'll notice the curls are getting more tight the further I go into the roll, and that also bites you, creates havoc sometimes. Just kidding, not havoc, but it's harder to work with, so it's more important when I get to the second layer that I use the second technique for ruffling. It helps me keep control of the curl. Okay, so you'll understand that when we get there. Fold it, get your center. Put your thumbs on the outside and ruffle it towards the chip clip. Keep your ruffles fairly small. You want to help keep the thickness of the wreath to the minimum. Okay, I'm holding it in the center loosely with one hand, my index finger and thumb. Trying to make sure that the edges are lined up well so that that translates to the frame. So the pipe cleaner's horizontal. I'm going to bring that mesh in vertical. Now you'll see other makers, designers, put the mesh in the opposite way. It's all personal preference, but I've given you the reason behind why I do mine the way I do it. I just think that helps keep the fray to the minimum. But you might find that it doesn't. It's up to you. I'm just here to give you some ideas and show you the process. If you would like to see me doing everything on camera, meaning the cutting of the ribbon and such, and how to do that, the best place to go is back to my early videos in January, February, and March of 2024. We just celebrated our 2-year anniversary on YouTube, which is exciting. So let's go to this one. It's hard to believe it's been 2 years already. 2 years and a couple weeks. So curl side down, uncurl it with the table. So I'm going to fold that in half, flip it in the center, fold it in half on this end, ruffle down the center, holding the mesh with my thumbs on the outside, using all my fingers to gather up to the clip. Clip off, put it in your thumb and forefinger, make any adjustments to even it up. Looks pretty good. It's also important that you have plenty of workspace. You notice mine's pretty clear. That way nothing's attaching to your wreath. So we're going to put this on there, and let me get this on here and I'll tell you what I'm talking about. Tight and low, twist, twist, twist. Outside edge, cut edge over inside cut edge. And now it's going to lay on top of the prior layer. Outside cut edge over inside cut edge. I got a point there and a dip here, so I'm going to pull in the dip. That took care of that. I'm holding it up here, cutting the fray. Now I forgot what I was going to tell you. Turning 60. Lovely. Okay, so first layer's on. Second layer, I have 2 of the 3. They sit on top of the prior layer. As you can see, I got 1 more to go. And I wanted to tell you, this stuff's like Velcro. It sticks to everything. That's what we were talking about, space. Because mesh is so much like Velcro and sticks to everything, it's important to keep your immediate surroundings empty of anything, because if it touches the Velcro, it's going to attach. And then you'll be taking that off. And you don't want to have to do that because you don't want to damage any of the product. And that's also why I highly recommend that you only wear older clothes and something short sleeve, so that you don't snag and ruin something you really like. That would be no fun. And again, it'll attach. You have long sleeves, it'll attach to the sleeve. And yeah, this is supposed to be fun. You don't want to be fighting with the product unless you have to. A couple pieces of fray there. If you do have long sleeves on, just roll them up, at least to here. You'll be happier when you do that. So I fold it in half. I put the clip on top, pulled it out over the table, folded it in half, found my center, and I'm gathering it up the center. Trying to stay centered. It's curlier now, so it's fighting me a little bit more. Take that clip off. Check out your edges. Okay, we're going to bring it over here. Tight and low. 1, 2, 3. Outside cut edge over inside cut edge. I didn't do one thing. I'll do that in the second half. Outside cut edge over inside cut edge. Holding the pipe cleaners to make any adjustments so that you're not damaging the design. Trying to curl it under if it'll let you. So there is the first layer. It looks like it's sticking out a little more than 5 inches. It's 10-inch mesh, so it shouldn't have more than 5 inches on each side of the center. So yeah, that one's got a little bit of a point out there, I noticed earlier. So make sure. Yeah, do that as you go so you don't have to go back and do it like I did just now. Yeah, this one's way. We're looking at 5 inches on each side of the pipe cleaner. That's better. I'm just going to double check them all while I'm at it. Okay, that looks like I got them all. So now we're going to attach the first layer of ribbon. Okay, I'm going to take this. Itchy nose, itchy nose. Alright, so I've got the 3 ribbons. I've decided I want the white on the bottom, but it will be in the center once I separate it all out. I want it on the bottom because if I put it on top of the 1.5 inch, it's going to hide a lot of this, and we don't want that to happen. So I had them all folded in half like that. So that gives me my crease in the center. So I know where I need to ruffle. So what I'm going to do is basically the same thing. I'm ruffling up the center, putting it in my thumb and forefinger. But I'm going to pull the tails down to the edge of the table. Make sure they're even on each side. And you're going to put them in the frame. So I didn't a boo-boo. I didn't get all my pipe cleaners ready. So let me put this in here. Tight and low 3 times. And then after the first 3, yes, we're going to twist it about 6 or 8 more times, but it's going to be up towards the ceiling. The bottom 3 are to hold it in place. And then we're creating a 1-inch twist and cutting off the excess. Cutting off what's not twisted after the 1 inch and tucking it into the frame. Okay, so let me get this all settled in and I'll go get the other pipe cleaners ready. So you're going to lift the top 2 away from the bottom. That helps you get all the way up to the pipe cleaner for more ease and movement of the ribbon into its position. And then I'm going to put the white where I expect the center to be. And then I'm going to lift the top one away from the second one. And I'm going to place that 1.5 inch up here and that star right here. If you get any little bubbles, divots in the top of your ribbon, just put your finger in there and push it out. Okay, then on the other side I do it in an opposing position. The white still stays where it was on the other side, so that's the center. So I'm lifting, separating, positioning. This time the 1.5 inch is going to come down by the star. Lift, separate, position, and then lift and there we go. I like to push it down a little bit to help keep it thinner as well when I know that it's going to be a storm wreath. And there we go. We want to make sure all the ribbons tips are facing to the outside edge of the wreath because on the bottom layer, that's all you're going to see is the tips. There will be another layer of mesh and ribbon and then the sign on top of that, okay? So let's go back and do what I should have before. With the putting the ribbon in, the pipe cleaners go vertical. Vertical. And I'm still turning it as I go so as not to strain my back or arms. Okay, remember with the mesh, the pipe cleaners went horizontal. With the ribbon, it goes vertical. Because the mesh goes in vertical, the ribbon goes in horizontal. Hopefully I didn't completely confuse you. So I'm not doing the one next to it. We're going to go the same technique as we did with the mesh. We're going to skip one, do this one, skip one, do this one. Then go back and do the 3 in between. So ruffle. Push to the outside of the table. Put it in the pipe cleaner. Tight and low 3 times. 1, 2, 3. Then twist up towards the ceiling to create a 1 inch, 1.5 inch twist. Cut the excess that's not twisted off the top of it. There's a trash can there. I'm not just throwing it on the floor. Tuck it in. Now you can wait to tuck it in until after you have the ribbon placed. That's entirely up to you. I go back and forth. So I'm going to push that in there. I'm going to lift, separate, position each one. That there. And I'm also running my finger down the ribbon to make sure it's not all wrinkly and stuff like that. Making sure it's straight and headed to the outside edge of the wreath frame. Also, just like with the mesh, don't handle the cut edges unless you have to, because they can fray as well. Not nearly as easily as mesh does, but nevertheless, it still can fray. So we're handling everything as little as possible. Right there, it may have looked like I grabbed it by the edge, but I grabbed it about 1.5 inches up. Get all your ribbon positioned. Now we're going to go a piece of fray. Oh, it's just a loose one. Okay, skipping this one, go into this one, get another bundle. The nice thing about this ribbon, there are no directional ribbon. And what do I mean by directional ribbon? If I had words on here and they only went one way and they weren't all different directions, I'd have to be cognizant of that before I put it in the wreath. But since the ribbon looks the same no matter which direction you look at it, I don't have to worry about that. Same thing with the stripes. Ruffle. Pinch it. Make sure they're even. Bring it over to the frame. Twist tight and low. Create a twist by twisting it 6 to 8 times. Cut the excess untwisted piece off. Lift, separate, position. Lift, separate, position, and then position the last one. See, I left it up this time. Lift, separate, position, remembering that the 1.5 inch goes down on this side and the 2.5 goes up. See, it's already got an attitude with me. It's going in all sorts of directions, so I like to hold it down. The ribbon doesn't need to be curly on the bottom layer. It just needs to be able to be seen on the outside edge. So I always kind of flatten it, like I said. There we go. So now let's go back and do the 3 in between. Gather, ruffle, pinch. Make sure they're even on both sides of the center. Twist tight and low. 1, 2, 3. Twist up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Cut the excess above the twist off. Tuck it in, or do it after you move the ribbon. Lift and separate. Position. Lift and separate. The white one was going to go with that, I could just tell. And put this one in place. And do the same thing on the other side. The white stays where it should be. Lift, separate, position. Sometimes I do it all at once in one movement. One here. Two, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, if you notice, my pipe cleaners are different lengths. That's not unusual. It just depends on how you twist. This year my hands have been so dry. I'm lotioning them up all the time. Just they stick to everything because they're so dry. So it looks like I'm struggling. Alright. I forgot to tuck that in, so I need to tuck that in. Okay. So let's get this last one on the bottom layer done. Don't just pull on them if they get stuck to something, because that wire will pull right out. even. Bring it over here. Twist tight and low 3 times. Upwards 6 to 8. Cut the excess and twist it off. Get those little divots out. Don't be afraid of the ribbon. If you buy good quality ribbon, you can manhandle it a little bit. Be a little bit more aggressive with it to get it to do what you want. These ribbons come from Deco Exchange Craft Outlet, and this top one, I believe, came from Michael's. So I use a variety of textures and materials and vendors. Okay, so there's our first layer. Ready to go to the second layer. And I'll be back once the mesh and a little bit of the ribbon is on the top layer. Okay, now that the mesh is on the second layer, this is what it looks like. I decided to do all of the ribbon with you because I need to explain how I'm going to be doing this. Now, I could put the ribbon on first and then the sign on top, or I could put the sign on first and the ribbon on top. Did I say it better? Sign on first, ribbon on top, or ribbon first, then the sign on top. What determines the difference for me is the shape of the sign. Now with a round sign, I usually put that on first and then the ribbon. Same thing with the square. If you have a heart or a star or an egg shaped, I always put the sign on last because otherwise you won't see the shape that you're accenting in the sign. But with the round, it is what it is. If you cover a little of the edges, it's not going to hurt anything. But there's another element to this one. This is a round sign, but it has a lot of wording on it, and I don't want any of the wording covered up. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and put on the ribbon and then the sign on top, so none of the wording is covered. So let me put that aside. You've got two choices in how you put the ribbon on. You can either put it on with the upside down V, if you just do it like this and put the V in it, or you can just put it straight out like this and flare all your ribbons. If I flare all my ribbons, a lot of it's going to be hidden behind the sign, and I want the ribbon to frame the sign, so I'm going to go ahead and put the ribbon on the frame the same way I did on the bottom layer. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get all these pipe cleaners ready, making sure they're all vertical because the ribbon goes in horizontal. Turning it as I go so I'm not straining my back. See how that's trying to catch a ride? Alright, so those are all ready, and I like to push it out of the way a little bit so I have room to work. I got that gathered in the center. I'm going to bring it to the outside edge. You can also push the divots out before you put it in the frame. A lot of people do that. I mix it up. I'm going to put it in there, and I'm going to twist it. 1, 2, 3, and then I'm going to stop. Because on the top layer, you have to decide how you want to have your pipe cleaners, and I'll go into that in a minute. This sign should cover all of the tips of the pipe cleaner, so you won't see these. If you were going to see it, I would take the dowel, and once I have the ribbon positioned, I know it's not positioned yet, I would twist this around and put it down at the base of the ribbon centers where it's gathered and twisted in. But because none of that's going to be seen, I don't need to do that. I'm just going to pull it back out. I'm going to go with just twisting it 6 to 8 times, plus maybe a few more. Because what I want to do is I'm going to cut off the tips after I tuck it underneath the ribbon and around. I'm going to cut off the excess so that all you see is just this little bit of a knob, little bit of a pipe cleaner in the center, because that's going to be covered. So now I'm going to position my ribbon. On the top layer, I don't do 1.5 inch side up and 2.5 inch down, and then the opposite over here. On this layer, I'm going to do it all the same, but every other. You're like, what are you talking about? Okay, just follow along. So put that in the center, lift, separate, position, lift, separate, position. Put this out here, okay? I like to turn it so I'm not contorting my body when I'm working. So that goes in the center, lift, separate, position. And I'm doing it exactly the same on both sides of the center. And I am going to give it a little bit of curl, not a whole lot, because we're still doing this for a storm door. Okay? We want them facing the outside of the wreath, and then we're going to do skip this one just like we did below, and do this one exactly the same as that one. Make that V. Put that in the frame. Twist 3 times, tight and low, because we're still wanting this to be a storm door wreath, so we want it as flat as possible. Then twist up towards the ceiling. Lift one side up, pull it down under, cut off just a little bit more than the stub of the twist, so it's hidden. Lift, separate, position. Lift, separate, position the 1.5 inch. And then we're going to position the stars. And then notice I'm always running my fingers over it to get those nice and crisp and straight on the sides and not buckled. So we're doing the same thing on this side. Always keeping the white in the center. Working on the divots as we can. And we're going to lift, separate, position. I tend to do it in one fell swoop, and I forget that I'm teaching. Sorry, guys. Give it a little bit of curl towards the edges because the sign's going to cover at the center. Skip one. I'm going to head over here, get that fray off. Going to pull that open. Ruffle up the center. Make our V. Make sure it's even on both sides. Put that in there. You now have the whole wreath to contend with when you're doing this, so yeah. Lift your arms so you're not dragging them on everything. When I get really tired, I start getting scratchy here. So I try to remember to lift up my arms so I'm not setting them down on the project. Do that. Bring that up. Twist it behind. Cut off the excess. That gives it just enough to stay twisted and in position, but it stays hidden under the ribbon once it's flared out. I tend to do this and this at the same time, or at least partially. The divot's pretty. Alright. So this is the last one that we're putting in this position. Divot out of there. It has a mind of its own, that's for sure. Okay, I'm just gonna there. So in the next 3, I'm still going to leave them in the order that they are in the bundle, but I'm going to ruffle up the center, bring the tips down to the end, put it in the frame in the pipe cleaners, twist tight and low 3 times, then twist up 6 or 8, lift to one side, tuck it under, cut the excess off, no more than an inch, don't leave more than an inch there. But this time, I'm still going to put the white in the center, so lift, separate, position. This time I'm going to put the stars up and the stripes down. So it gives it a little more dimension even. You could also put the stripes on top. I've already started this, so I'm going to stay with this. So lift, separate, position. So that's there. That's there. Again, touch of curl. And at the end, we'll poof it up a little bit more too. So don't spend a lot of time curling and positioning. After the sign goes in, we'll make sure all the ribbon is standing proud and the way it should be. I love doing Patriotic. I'm ready for it every year when it comes. 1, 2, 3, up. Lift up one side, tuck it under. Lift, separate position. And remembering that this 1.5 inch down, that's in the center, and that's on the top. Okay. A little bit of curl, not a whole lot. I don't need this. So lift, separate position. Lift, separate position. Okay. This has got almost like a ribbon edge to it, so it's really stiff. These are really stiff ribbons, all of them. That's just printed on, it's not glued on. I was looking at the stars. That's actually printed on the burlap. Okay. And last but not least, we've got this one. A little bit of fuzz on it from the red. Shook that right off. Fold it in half, making sure it's centered. Okay, let me get these divots out now. They'll let me. I've noticed the more you gather it, the better, the less divots you get. Let me know if anybody else that does this. Let me know if you find that to be true as well. 2, 3, up. Twist behind. Get the excess off. Okay. Okay. Lift, separate in position. Lift, separate in position. Remembering that the 1.5 inch goes down. The stars go up. The white one has a divot that doesn't want to come out. That's okay, we'll show it who's in charge. Let me put that there. I'm handling it pretty aggressively if you can't tell. Alright, so there it is. So now I'm going to stand, covered in burlap now. Alright, it's time to put the sign on. So what I usually do is I position one ribbon bundle at 12 o'clock and one at 6 o'clock. And that tells me where my center is on the frame, so that when I'm putting the sign in, I can keep it centered. So I'm bringing these pipe cleaners up to the front of the sign. I know this is my center here, so it's going to go there. And that's my center there. So there's that. These are going to have to be brought out of the way, at least temporarily, so I can get this stuff. We're not putting the pipe cleaner through the ribbon, just the mesh. And then I'll reposition all that ribbon, okay? So let's see. I'm going to sit back down. Now that I know where it needs to go. And I'm going to take that needle. If you don't have it, you just use your fingers. And I'm going to take the needle through on the very outside of this ribbon bundle, but do it at an angle through the mesh and the whole frame, and then I'm going to put the pipe cleaner in there. Twist it on there, not twist it, just fold it so it stays on the needle. And I'm going to pull the needle out of the back. Don't throw your packaging again away until you're done putting the sign on. I'm going to turn it around and to do the same thing up here. Getting this right in right by where the pipe cleaner is on the ribbon tails. Because we don't want any of the mechanics to show. I did it at an angle. I'm going to take this, put this on top here, and I'm going to use that to keep it from scratching when I turn it over, so that if I accidentally twist it instead of lift it as I'm moving it, I won't scratch my picture, my sign. So then I'm just going to take the pipe cleaner and I'm going to wrap it around the frame, usually near another pipe cleaner from the base, until the pipe cleaner's gone. Then I'm going to lift it up and not spin it. And do the same thing with this one. I'm putting a little bit of pressure on the frame because I want it to settle into the wreath but not look like it's sucked in. Like, that doesn't look good. It needs to be in taut enough so that it doesn't flop around on the front. So let me turn it around so it's nice and flat. And then I'll put these two in and we'll position all of the ribbon. So this goes here. The needle's at an angle so that it goes slightly under the sign, and I did that with the other two as well. So you're not seeing this pipe cleaner. Although I think the ribbon's going to cover it enough. Okay, come on. It's just not being cooperative. There we go. But I'll do that one by hand to show you. It's just a little bit more time consuming and you might get resistance from the mesh. So I'm just going to take the tip and I'm going to go through the mesh slightly under the sign, and I'm going to do my best to get it pulled through to the other side. I see it over there. And you're definitely not putting it through any of the ribbon. There it is, I feel it. Oh, don't pop back up. See how much more time it takes? Okay, put that on there. Flip it over. And in this case, it's going to end up where the crossbar is, which is also nice. Having the crossbars where they are helps hold it in place well so it doesn't spin around the sign, that is. I'm making sure to wrap the pipe cleaner around till it's completely gone, and then the tip is tucked back towards the front so that it's not sticking out and potentially scratching a door. Some people have glass doors like I do, so you don't want to scratch the glass either. I'm also doing some little cleanup with some frayed pieces on the bottom. Get that wrapped around. If you notice, I did two this way and then I did two this way, so that's an X. That helps you keep the sign straight and not cockeyed on the front. Okay, so now it's done. I can throw away the plastic. I usually start at the bottom and make sure all my ribbon is positioned where I want it. You lift up the mesh from the top whenever you're handling the ribbon on the bottom, because it's going to stick regardless. The less you get frays on the mesh or the ribbon, the better. We want to see all this beautiful ribbon out at the outer edge. As you can see, it's just the very tips that will be seen of the ribbon on the bottom layer. Lift that mesh. Most of them didn't move too much. They still stick to everything. Okay. This is the third one. Some of these, what did we do there? Okay. That one was really hidden. I spoke too soon. There we go. Never handling the very tips of the ribbon. Let's get this all out. One keeps turning. Lift it out. 5. I like that. Let me fix that. It's just funky looking. Okay. There we go. The tips of them got a little smushed against me, so that's mostly what I'm having to do is straighten that out from being smushed against my tummy. Okay, so now we'll do the top. Let's see. I'm going to give it a little bit more curl. This one will sit on top of this one. Also, the pen pencil or the wooden dowel is also really good for giving your ribbon a curl. Let me fix this at the base. So we just do this. We run it behind with the hand on top. See how much curlier that got? Now even if you do that, it's still going to fit nicely behind a storm door because it'll flatten it out just a little bit. Go back and do this one. There. And you can do all 3 at once or one at a time. And I'm going to go back the other way. I didn't do that side. One. Should do that one after this side. I don't feel like picking it up. It's sticking to that Velcro. I need to turn it, straining my back. Getting serious. I got real quiet, didn't I? I have to fix that. I don't like that up there the way it's sitting. It's giving me some difficulties today. Goodness gracious. Guess I need to go back to doing one at a time. Fix that one again. There you go, fussing again. All right, let's give it a little pull. Do this again. I think that'll do it. And there you have it. Okay guys, there you go. Now you've seen the process of making a storm door wreath. If it's something that you're interested in making yourself, I sell kits. Patriotic will be coming up in a few months. If you're just looking for something beautiful to put on your door, all my product is available in my Etsy shop at Wreaths by Marguerite. That's the Etsy page. And then all of my social media is obviously you're here on YouTube. So it's Wreaths by Marguerite LLC. It's also Wreaths by Marguerite LLC on Facebook. And then I'm also on Pinterest and Instagram. I had a brain fart there for a second. All at Wreaths by Marguerite as well. So if you can't find me with just Wreaths by Marguerite, just remember to add the LLC. I hope you enjoyed the content that you watched today and you come back to see more. Like I said, there's 2 years of content. I know your time is valuable, so the fact that you're spending some time with me and carved out some of your day means a lot to me. If you like what you see, I have a new tutorial that comes out every Sunday at 1 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Thanks again for coming, and I hope we see you in the future. Have a great day. Bye-bye.